Hi everyone and welcome back to a card making video. Today I'm showcasing the December card kit by SimonSaysStamp, and let's start with what's included. So you get a zipper bag to keep everything nice and neat. You will find a jar of embossing powder. There is also your little lollipop. You will find 3 ink cubes in those 3 colors, lovely for this season. I think that they are nice Christmassy colors if you combine them. There is also a pack of those card bases, so they have lovely blended color combinations. And you will also get these adhesive transfers. Now these are snowflakes that you can peel off and stick on your project. You can use them either with powders like glitters or embossing powders, or you can use them with foiling if you like. I will be using those today for one of my cards. Now there is a little wooden stick that you can use if you want to transfer just by adding pressure. Then you get this embossing folder. Now the embossing folder gives you not only the embossed design but also a set of dies if you want to cut them out, and I will show you how I will be using it today. Now keep in mind that if you buy everything included in one kit individually, it adds up to about $80, but if you get it as a kit, they are about half the price. So this is the stamp set, lots of options with this one. You get many focal points as well as lots of filler stamps and sentiments. And there are also extra bits and pieces like cardstock and envelopes. So let's start with the first card for today. And for that I want to use the embossing folder. So I want to start with craft cardstock. I am going to cut it out to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 to start with. And then I am going to spray it a little bit with water, just a very light mist, and then run it through my die cutting machine. So this is very thick embossing folder. It's one of those 3D embossing folders. Just find what sandwich works for you depending on which die cutting machine you have, and you get an amazing embossed image. Now you can leave it as it is. It looks gorgeous as it is, and you can definitely see all those little hats and scarves and gloves, but I want to enhance it even more, and I like that mixed media look and feel, so I'm going to grab my white pigment ink and I will go with the ink pad lightly over those embossed areas. This is going to bring everything to life even more. Don't worry if it doesn't come up perfect. That's the joy of a mixed media looking background. And also keep in mind that this is pigment dye ink, which that's why you can see the white popping so much on top of the craft cardstock, but at the same time it dries very slow. So make sure that you either use your heat gun to make sure that this is completely dry before you manipulate the cardstock too much, or just leave it to dry for quite a while. Now I ended up cutting this panel to be slightly smaller before I inked up the edges all around with my white pigment ink, so that I can stick it on top of my card base and it leaves me a little bit of a white border all around. Now I need a focal point for my card, and I decided to go with those mittens. Oh, and by the way, before leaving that to dry aside, I did add some white splattering. It reads as snow, but again it's completely optional. Now the beauty is that you can use any color that you like for your mittens. I decided to go with reds, and I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending directly on top of the mittens. So you see I used the darker red only on one edge of the mittens, and I just blend it out with my fingers. This is going to give me a little bit of an ink blending directly on top of my mittens, and then I can use my scissors and cut them out. I believe there is a matching die set for this stamp set, which I don't have, so it was just with my scissors. Now, the idea that I had was to have a string connecting those two mittens and just have that string looping all around my card, as you can see here. So that's the initial idea, and I always like to play around, try to decide what looks balanced, and that's what I'm doing here. I also stamped my sentiments so that I can play with all those elements and decide what looks best. And here is how I ended up putting everything together. I'm adding foam tape at the back of the mittens, just putting them down in place, and then I will add the thread, making sure that I add a little bit of glue here and there so that the string stays exactly as I want it to be. And this is my afterthought. I just thought it would be fun to thread that string all around the top layer. So my reverse tweezers are very handy for this job. I'm going to grab them from the other side, and I was lucky enough that I didn't have foam tape just there. I think it's a really fun design with the string actually hugging the top layer. I am going to play around the string, decide how I want this to look, and again I'm going to make sure that it stays put with a little bit of glue. So I added the sentiment at the center, and I'm also adding some dots to embellish the mittens. And here are some close-up photos on the first card for today. It's a simple design, but I absolutely love that string unique idea. I think it is adorable. So let's move on to the second card for today. And for this one, I decided to go with a very elegant look and feel. One of those Christmas cards that look very elegant. I'm starting with embossing, and I will emboss this stamp twice on top and at the bottom of my green panel here. On my MISTI, by the way, I have one of those silicone mats that grab the paper by Waffle Flower, so it is always there and I don't have to fight with magnets. So I rotated the panel to stamp the same design on top, and then I'm going to apply gold embossing powder. I'm using my heat gun to set the powder, and then I'm going to use one of those techniques that I absolutely love to do on dark cardstock. I'm going to darken up the edges of that cardstock even more. So I'm using an ink pad that is slightly darker than that green. And I'm inking up the edges. This is going to create kind of a vignette look where the edges are darker and it lightens up the center somehow. I am going to do that with a little bit of brown as well, but I'm not going to go as far as I did with the dark green. And if you want a more dramatic look where this effect is going to pop even more, is if you want, you can add some black ink all the way to the far edge. I also stamped with embossing ink the word Scentic at the center, and this time I am going to emboss that with white embossing powder, so this way it's going to really pop. I also want to have the mittens, so I'm going to cut them out from this golden cardstock, and now let's put everything together. I'm placing the panel on top of my card base, and I have foam squares at the back. I do have that those mittens embossed, so what I did was cut out the mittens and then I just placed them where that design was, like so. Just put them there, close the top lid and run them through your die cutting machine. You will get them embossed and they have that lovely heart on top of them. So I'm going to add foam squares at the back, place them on top of my design. And sometimes when the designs are so small, it's handy to use reverse tweezers. Now notice how these fall inside the curve of the top design. I find this a really nice element when everything comes together easily. I am going to stick down my secondary sentiment, and I do have foam squares behind that. I will finish it off by adding some dots with my contour liner, and I'm using the gold one here so it matches with the embossed leaves at the back. And here are some close-up photos where you can see the details better, and look at those mittens with the embossed detail. Now let's move on to the third card where I will be playing with those adhesive transfers. So here are the snowflakes, and before I go ahead and do anything, I'm just going to apply some anti-static pouch on top of my background because I am planning to do embossing by using those snowflakes. So what you need to do is to just cut out the designs that you like, peel them off, stick them and create the design on top of your cardstock. Now I love the gradient look on my background and I don't want to overwhelm the design with snowflakes. That's why I went kind on a triangle. So I just use my scissors to cut off the excess, and then you can either use the little wooden stick to press and transfer the adhesive to the cardstock, or for an easier approach, just run it through your die cutting machine. You just need the normal sandwich that you use for your thin dies. So I'm going to run it through, and I did that twice just to make sure that the adhesive transferred nicely. You need to peel off the top then, and you will see that the adhesive of all those snowflakes is there. Now what you can do is to just apply foil, and it's going to stick where the adhesive of the snowflakes are. I decided to go with white embossing powder, and this is when everything went wrong. As you can see, the embossing powder is stuck all over the place. So although I did use my pouch for removing static electricity, it didn't work because that cardstock is kind of glossy. And the pressure with that acetate on top, I think, made the situation really difficult. Anyway, what I did was just go over the snowflakes with a clean, dry brush, really lightly. You see, this is adhesive and the powder is already stuck there. So even if you go over it with a brush, it's not going to remove it from the places that you want it to stay. I'm not going to lie, and I'm going to say that there are particles of that white powder here and there. However, I will show you how I'm going to save it. So all I'm doing here is cutting 1/4 of an inch from two sides of this panel just to make it slightly smaller, which means that it's going to give me a little border, white border, when I stick it down. And I like that border, it matches with the white on the snowflakes, so I think that it gives a more finished look on my card. Of course, I'm going to add foam tape at the back. And I zoomed in for you so you can see probably the particles, the little white dots here and there that are all over the place because I had that blooper. So I'm not going to throw it away, I'm going to make it and make it look as if it was part of the design and as if it was intentional. So all you have to do is to just add white splatters. The white splatters are going to read as snow. It's going to give a mixed media look and feel on my card, and at the same time it kind of blends in with all the imperfections that I already have. So to finish it off, I'm going to add some gems at the center of my snowflakes. I have here some from Spellbinders, I believe, in different sizes. So depending on the center, I'm going to choose a different size. And then of course all you have to do is to just add the sentiment to finish off your card. So these were the 3 cards for today. I hope that you had fun, that you got inspired. You can see here some close-up photos. Just like always, there is a full list of all the supplies that I used down below in the description area. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll see you all next time.